of the Brooklyn Community Board 2. We're calling it to order, and it's being recorded for public access on the CB2 YouTube archive in accordance with the open meeting law. So it's a practice that we conduct remote meetings with the committee member cameras on, and we encourage public attendees to also leave their cameras on, especially if you're given the floor to speak. And please keep your microphones muted if you're not speaking. I'll make it known which topics are open for comments by committee members. And of course, we have our youth council, so we're excited to hear from them. So I will call on them at the right time, board members at large and the general public. And if you have questions that fall outside of public comment time, type your questions in the chat panel and we'll address them if it's relevant and time permits, or you can contact the district office. And we want to provide access for all of our neighbors, regardless of physical ability or limitation. So in the future, if people require accommodations or assistance, they can contact the district office prior to the public meeting, and we'll get assistance. So now we want to introduce everybody on our committee. I'm Betty Feibush, I'm the chair. I don't see. Okay, so members of the committee first, if you can just introduce yourself. I think Nick.
Sure, good evening, Nick Ferreira, committee and board member.
Welcome, good to see you. And
thank you, welcome everybody, you too.
Sam Johnson.
Hi everyone, good evening. My name is Sam Johnson, committee member and board member.
I'm glad to see you, even though I don't see you, but yeah. Okay, so we don't have quorum yet. I would like the youth council members. I see that all of them are here. Excellent. So Abby, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Abby. I'm a new member of the council.
Welcome. And Sakura?
Welcome, Abby.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sakura, and as well, a new member of the Youth Council.
Glad to see you. Maddie?
Hi, I'm Maddie, and I'm also new to the Youth Council.
And it looks like you're in a public place because you appropriately wearing a mask and a well-fitting one. So, all right. Ian.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Ian, and we're all new members, so that's that.
And that's great.
Welcome,
Okay,
Ian.
so I will welcome other people as they arrive and so on. So for the youth council members, you'll have an opportunity to speak during other business for the community board, other business on the agenda, and also to ask questions during the presentation or to ask me questions during the chair's report. So that's how we'll try to work it. So from my members, do we have an approval of the agenda?
Yes.
Yes, and a second?
I'll have to be Sam Johnson.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just whoever's here. Yeah.
Actually,
Okay.
Betty, you can second
Sorry.
it. You can second it.
Having some connection issues. What was the question?
Do you approve the agenda, Sam? Of course.
Absolutely.
Absolutely you do.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yes, with bells. Sorry.
Can we get over
Thank
this
you.
hurdle?
Approval of minutes are usually by consensus. I don't see Madison here. I wanted to compliment Madison. She took great minutes last time and she agreed to be committee secretary. Hooray, Madison, but I don't see her yet. Madison Chan. Okay. So for the members that are here, do we approve the minutes by consensus? Yeah. Fabulous. Okay. So without further ado, I want to introduce Terry. How do you say your last name? Grease?
Grease, yes. Grease.
Grease. Okay. Terry Grease from the Irondale Ensemble project. We are excited that you're here. We our youth education and cultural affairs. And we're always excited to hear from our cultural partners. Our area is rich in cultural institutions, and we always want to understand how they're working with directly with members of our community in schools and in other places. So please present, and we'll ask you questions and hopefully engage you in a lively conversation.
That sounds great. Hi, everybody. I'm really happy to be here. And as I was thinking about the way to structure this presentation, it's almost like saying, well, tell us what you've been doing for the last 40 years. Because that's basically how long Irondale has been around and how long I've been associated with it. I'm one of the founders. Right now, and for the past, I guess, 17 years, we've been located at the Lafayette Avenue Presbyterian Church, which you can see virtually in a virtual image behind me. It's one of the most exciting performance spaces maybe even in the city. You know, to find a 5,400 square foot space without any pillars and 30-foot ceilings is extraordinary. And what's wonderful about the space is that it's an historic gem of the borough. And when we came along and had the good fortune to discover it and renovate it, and we really saw ourselves as stewards in the continuing history of making this space a destination point and a home for the community. Irondale is a theater company, but it is unlike many theater companies in that the mission of the company is really to create and use theater to help people solve problems. So even from the time where we're talking about what plays do we choose, we're looking at what is the play that has to be done right now, whether it is Shakespeare or it is Ibsen or O'Neill or a contemporary work. What play speaks to the moment that we're living in as citizen artists? And this concept of the citizen artist is something that's very important to us because we have trained hundreds and hundreds of people and probably thousands of young people to think of themselves as artists and to use that art as citizens to make their world a better place. I'm going to try to share my screen with you, and just there's a little pictorial presentation. This was the first show we did at the Irondale space. It was Peter Pan, and it was in 2008, and it was we opened the space the week that Lehman Brothers collapsed, and that was bad timing. But it was without any money, without any external resources, we were able to create theater that really came from nothing and spoke to the imagination. I think of Irondale as a wheel, and this sort of pictorially highlights it. Everything comes from the theater, the creation of theater with a permanent company of artists who work together on an almost daily basis to figure out what this thing theater is, how it gets made, and who it's good for. And with that as the mission, it's led us on a lot of really amazing circuitous routes through life. For the past 6 years, I guess we've been working on this series called Brecht in Exile. Bertolt Brecht was a great German writer in the 30s, and he also wrote plays of the moment. He took historical incident. He will take the life of Galileo, for example, and ostensibly it would be about Galileo, but it was really about the struggle between the church and art, and the church and science. And that's what he was writing about. And he used the character of Galileo as his medium. So we've been working on a Brecht series for the past 6 years, which consisted of Galileo, The Good Soul of Sichuan, and Mother Courage, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. So from the theater, the spokes of the wheel branch out, and we do a great deal of work, for example, with youth. Our youth companies, we have a young company of teens who are 14 to 18 years old, and they get 250 free hours of theater training every year. And they create their own work. They perform at other places. They perform in the streets of Brooklyn sometimes in the summertime, and they also perform at BACS a couple of times a year, and they form alliances with other youth theaters around the city and around and throughout the country, actually. I think of the youth theater as the Irondale legacy. How do we pass on what we have learned as artists over the years to young people? A way of not only making theater, but of working together and solving problems together. And the young company has become a home for, I would say, over the past 15 years, some 200 or 300 kids have passed through. And most of them have stayed with the young company for 4 years, go to college, and then they come back and they work with the younger kids, which is really interesting and really exciting. Our junior company, this picture here, these are 10 to 13-year-olds. And they serve as a feeder company for the young company. They're from middle schools usually, and it's an after-school program that meets once a week. The young company meets on Saturdays for 3 hours. The junior company meets on Tuesdays for 2 hours. During the pandemic, when everything seemed like it was closing up and you couldn't do theater, the young company discovered a way to create pieces on Zoom. So I think they did 3 or 4 pieces during the quarantine part of the pandemic. And they're still working on Zoom. Just last week, we created a 24-hour play festival where the kids, not only from the young company, but for high school kids all over the city, had 6 days, I think, to write a play. And then to come together on Zoom and cast it and direct it and produce it in 6 hours. And so we had a series of 4 or 5 15-minute plays that were presented last week. And we did that with She Arts, another arts organization in the borough. Another project, another spoke of the wheel, is our STEM to STEAM program. We're working with about 700 high school students who are enrolled in the Science Research Mentoring Program around the city. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of this, but students are paid to work with major scientific and engineering institutions throughout the city. The Museum of Natural History, Wave Hill, the Rockefeller Institute, Columbia Presbyterian, places like that. And they're working with their STEM mentors on these impossible projects. You know, how do you create the city of tomorrow that will not be a polluted mess? How do you clean up the oceans? How do you look for life on other planets? So they're working with their STEM mentors, and then we come in and using theatrical improvisation, we teach them how to talk about their work to all different kinds of audiences. So as you know, presentation is not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. If I'm talking to a group of scientists, I will speak in one way. If I'm talking to a group of parents of third graders, I'll speak in another way. If I'm speaking to my friends or my parents, I'll speak in yet another way. And we teach these young scientists and engineers how to do that, how to know their audience and how to gear their presentations for their audience. Going back to our wheel, we have our school residencies. And right now we're at Fort Greene Prep. We are at Arts and Letters, and we just started a program at New Bridges Elementary School. And these programs we've been at Fort Greene Prep since they opened. So we've done a lot of different kinds of work with them, from manning their after-school programs to creating programs with faculty that help students learn history, math, science, using theater as the learning medium. Because not every child learns the same way. Not every person learns the same way. Some people are great at learning things by rote. They memorize facts, and they can learn that way. Other people have to really experientially work through a problem. And for those kinds of learners, theater is a terrific mechanism to do it. One of our really significant programs is the program called TPSU, which is to protect, serve, and understand. We all know about the tensions in the community between police and community members, and how difficult it's been. This week in particular was a horrible week for our city with the officers who were shot. What we've been doing for the past 6 years is bringing groups of officers and civilians together for 10 weeks at a time to learn how to improvise and to learn how to talk to each other and really listen to each other. Not pretend to listen to each other, but really break through that barrier of, I'm going to be present with you, and I'm really going to seek to understand you, and I'm going to speak in a way that I know you've understood me. And through this intensive program of, it's a 56-hour program with 7 community people and 7 police officers. And the officers are assigned to the program, so they're on duty when they're at Irondale. The community members are paid a stipend. We start every workshop with a home-cooked meal where we all sit around big tables together, we eat together, and we talk together. And you can talk about baseball, you can talk about the weather, but then it gets pretty intense. I was at the theater last night doing our second workshop of our first live series in 2 years, because during the pandemic we couldn't meet during the height of it. And it's great to be able to be back in space again with police officers and civilians. And I'll tell you, because of the incidents of this week, it was an intense session. But at the same time that all the fear and anger and rage and tears, there was this joy of playing together, of being together. And at one point, we were having this discussion which became an argument, which became a shouting match. And then we said, okay, let's sing. And they all sang. And they sang with such joy that you say, you know, this is really cool. Like, this is important. That people can break through the fear of the uniform or the skin color or the neighborhood and leave those preconceptions behind and deal with each other as human beings and sing joyfully together and play together. And this program has really changed my life in a lot of ways, I have to say. I'm very proud of it. We're just starting a program for adult scientists called Exact Communication, where we'll be working with people working on climate change and in all sorts of different STEM fields, and in corporate situations as well, teaching them how to become better communicators. But through it all, I think the most important thing I would like to stress is this idea of the citizen artist. Because with every one of our programs, with every one of our youth programs in particular, we not only train young actors, I mean, that's great, it's important, but training young citizens is even more important. And we've been able to do that using theater. Over the past few years, we've redefined our mission, and we now think of ourselves as taking on impossible projects, like the police project, like working on all the plays Shakespeare wrote in the year 1599, which were 4 plays, and then performing them all in one night. And to get to that point, you have to have a company of artists who are more than, who say yes to impossible ideas. And that's what Irondale does. We also rent our space. We bring in dance companies. Let me see if I can find something there. This was a festival that we ran for a few years called Flick Fest, which was full-length independent choreography. There's a wonderful event happening this weekend where the whole theater will be decked out in electric candlelight, because we don't want to light a flame in an historic church that's mostly made of wood. And there'll be 1,000 candles all over the space, and there'll be a string quartet and dancers. And there'll be classical music and jazz music and dancers responding to that music improvisationally, and the theater will look beautiful, and very excited about that. We've got our spring production, Irondale spring production, Mother Courage and Her Children, which some people think of as the greatest anti-war play ever written. It is that. It's also a play about surviving really difficult times and keeping families together through really difficult times. And even though this play was written in the 1930s, it is as much about today as any play I can think of. We had originally planned to do it on stage last February, I guess. But of course we couldn't. Everything was closed down. So we did it as a radio show. We did it as an old-time radio broadcast all the actors were all over the place. Somebody was in Virginia, somebody was in Washington, D.C., somebody was in Buffalo. And with our cell phones and GarageBand on our Macs, we laid down the tracks. We had an engineer from National Public Radio put in the sound effects, and we created this audio version of the piece. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take that and do it live on stage. So the audience will be walking into the theater, and it will be a radio studio where this play is coming to life. And that's going to be this spring, which I hope you will come to see, because our tickets are cheap and we offer student tickets all the time. If you're interested in participating as a member of our young company, again, all our youth programs are free, which is thanks to some generous outside funders who stepped up during the pandemic and agreed with us that nobody should have to pay for these programs who can't afford it. And we just wanted to keep the doors open and bring kids in from everywhere we could to create together using the art of ensemble theater and find their own voices. Find the things that they want to speak about, that they're really concerned about. And we have been the adult company and the young company have really influenced each other greatly. We were doing a piece some years ago about the abolitionist history of Brooklyn, and we created a musical theater piece based on that. We were working with the Brooklyn Historical Society and the Weeksville Heritage Center. We created a piece called Color Between the Lines. Our kids from the young company saw that piece and said, we want to do our reaction to that play, but we want to make it our own play. So they created their own version. It was a different play, different title, different concept, but it was clearly speaking to them about abolitionism, about the civil rights movement, about the ongoing pursuit of freedom. And that's the kind of work we're doing. So it's theater and it's more. It's theater, it's education, it's art and education. I've never liked the term arts in education because I feel like all good art is educational. and all good teachers are artists. That's how I've tried to shape the company. So I'm going to shut up. I've been talking enough, and if you guys have any questions, I would love to hear them.
Well, first I want to thank you. Your presentation was very inspiring, and certainly we want to learn more about it and figure out ways to connect more young people in schools especially. So I open this to my members of my committee first. Are there any questions for Terry or comments?
No questions, just I too appreciated the presentation and the work you do. Very, very interesting, I think, perspective, I guess, on the work. And just personally, I think, as somebody who got to be like sort of in a drama sort of, situation in high school, we'll say, everybody needs their own community. And then so for people to have that community and young people to have that community, and then for you to want them to think about how they can contribute positively, I guess, to their own, really awesome stuff. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Do any of you?
Sam
Yeah.
Johnson. Good evening. Thank you so much, Terry. I just
Thank
also
you.
want to echo the same sentiments as Nick. I've worked with you at the Ingersoll Community Center. You've done some after-school programming back in the day, and so I just wanted to be able to, say thank you for doing the work and continuing to do that work with young people. And I also have a background in theater, so it's very, sentimental to my heart about how it's still doing the work here in Brooklyn with your program. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Any of the youth council members, do any of you do theater? Do any art practices? Nope. You should try it.
Don't feel shy. You can join the conversation.
I know it's hard sometimes to break in, but please, whatever occurs to you.
I personally just auditioned for my school musical, and I think like one of the reasons that I love it, sort of as to what you're speaking about, is just sort of the community that it builds. So I'm really looking forward to that.
That's great. And it does do that. Because you go on a journey with the people you rehearse a show with. It's like you're all setting out to solve the same problem, which is how do I tell this story to a group of people, and how do I make it compelling, and how do I put myself in it? So if you're all doing that together, you come out of it changed. And that's a really exciting thing to watch, to be part of.
Any other comments? Let me look at my screen.
I hope I see you at the theater. If you do want to come to the theater, I will make sure that you can come as my guest for through the summer. So just email me at terry@irondale.org, and you're all welcome to sample what we've got.
Thank you so much. That's very generous, and we appreciate it. I think I have a few more questions, and maybe others will pop in if you have a few more moments.
Sure.
So I know that young people in the schools that work with you will have heard about the possibilities that they can join and so on. How do young people in our community who don't go to the schools that you work with, that don't particularly know that much about the arts or about Irondale, how would they find out? What kind of community outreach would there be? Is there?
Word of mouth is the most effective one. Kids tell other kids who tell other kids who tell other kids, and all of a sudden, somebody who's been with the young company for 2 years brings 3 of their friends the next year, and it grows that way. We do extensive newsletter emailings to our mailing list, and they pass things on to other families that they know who have kids who are of the age to be involved. So that's the most effective way. We don't do any advertising per se. We'll do flyering and leafleting throughout the neighborhood. Sometimes we'll be able to, well, the beginning of every season, when Young Company starts in October, and Young Company and Junior Company both start in October. So from late summer through the middle of September, we will hang posters in shops, and there's no audition for this. You know, this is I want to learn about this, and as long as you can make the commitment, we believe everybody has talent. It's just waiting to be unlocked. So there's no audition process. You just have to agree to show up.
That's awesome. I guess I'm particularly concerned about students that are disengaged, who don't go to school or very often, or have other struggles and aren't the type of kids that maybe are the joiners or the risk takers, and they have their own struggles in their lives. How do you attempt to reach that population, and can any of the community organizations in the area help with that?
I think yes. The second part of your question is, we don't have unlimited resources to reach kids who are in those situations. We have done projects in the past where we worked at Rikers Island for 10 years, working with juveniles incarcerated. We did a big project for the Department of Health for 7 years with street kids who were AIDS affected. So youth in gangs, youth in the sex industry. So we were working with kids that way. But the project really led us into that, and we had to mine for those students. But we did. For Young Company and Junior Company, less so. But we've had students who fit the description you're talking about, but they're usually brought by others.
Mm. Hey, is there anything that we as a committee or a board can advocate for in terms of funding for this type of programming for the more vulnerable children, young people?
Absolutely. We've been. Do you know Jed Marcus?
I don't, but I'm sure others do.
Jed is an attorney in the neighborhood, and he's been working on a project called One World, and he started with him taking young people who were disaffected, who were out of school, and starting by teaching them how to fix bicycles and work that way. And we've been working with Jed on trying to use some of his students in projects that we're engaged in, and bringing them into Young Company as well. So yes, we can certainly, the Young Company always needs more funding. I mean, it's a free program for up to 20 kids, and that's it's an expensive thing to run. But we could also use the help with outreach and getting the word out that the program exists and people are welcome to try it out.
Mm-hmm. Nick, do you have any questions? I see you there.
No. I was just nodding. Thanks.
Okay. Any final questions or remarks for Terry? Taya?
I have a question tonight. Mr. Grace, To Protect, Serve, and Understand program is fascinating and super complex. I was just wondering, how are the participants on either side of the table for that recruited? Are they local? Are they from the ADAs? Are they local residents on the other side?
The cops, the officers are from all over the city, and we work with police headquarters to get. They send us a pool of officers. They'll send 30 or officers, and we will interview those 30 officers extensively, and based on diversity of time on the force, of different ethnic backgrounds, of different opinions. Definitely, we get a whole variety of opinions. We cast it accordingly, and we do the same with civilians. And the civilians come from the neighborhood, usually from our newsletter blasts, or again from postering. And we've been working with. This year, we worked particularly with the housing projects in the area to recruit people from their constituencies, and we offer. Because the police officers are paid, we wanted a certain amount of equity for the civilians as well, so we pay them $100 for each workshop that they attend, and that has helped us get people who really should be in the room. It's an amazing program. At the end of the 10 weeks, they put on a public performance, which this year will be March 25th and 26th. And I'd love it if the community board could help publicize that. You should let us know how to pipeline with you, I guess, when we do
That's
want.
great. I'm sure if you send
did
information
text
to Taya, she will work with you on getting it out to our mailing list constituencies and so
Great.
on.
I guarantee you will never see any theater that will be more affecting than when you see these officers and civilians working together and being so damn honest. It's
So are
pretty-
they, I know they're learning like improv and conversation. Are they creating a play, or is
Not really. It's not really. I mean, I wouldn't call it a play. I would call it halfway through the program, we send them off, and the cops interview civilians who are not in the workshop, and the civilians interview other cops who are not in the workshop, and they become the person that they've interviewed. So, for example, a 60-year-old white Irish cop may interview an 18-year-old Hispanic woman, and he will have to become her and tell her story in her words. And by doing that, it gives him a chance to walk in her shoes and to see the world through her point of view. We try to match people who are very, very different politically, age-wise, and just as different as we can get them, so that they really have to step out of their comfort zone in order to own the words of another human being and tell them honestly.
This is very inspiring and very pertinent, especially for these times,
Yeah,
but
I mean,
for all times, yeah.
last night, and we didn't know this in advance, of course, but we had several of the officers were friends with the officers who were shot. So you can imagine it was a very emotional night, but it was also really wonderful in many ways. So I do invite you to learn more about us, and I'm always here to answer questions. And it was an honor to speak with you. Thank you. Really
And
great.
thank you for your very important work that you're doing and your organization.
It was.
Thank
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
It was fun being here. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Good
Have a
night.
great evening. Thank you.
Good night.
Wow. That was a very important presentation. I'm sorry that more of our members weren't here to hear that. Shall we go into the chair's report now? Shall we? Okay, so it is about 6:45. Okay. So again, I wanted to congratulate Madison for taking on the secretarial role, and that's a form of leadership. So I thank you so much.
Thank you, Madison.
Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to report out on a few things and engage in some conversation. I attended the HES meeting. The HES is the Health Environment and Social Service Committee, and they have, as part of their routine agenda, you know, in addition to their presentations and all, they have an update every month on COVID, on the statistics, on the vaccinations, on any new scientific information, on where to get various masks and swabs and so on. Whatever the issues are, there's a member of the committee that does a lot of research and just puts a lot of information together. So I urge people who have a moment, I believe it's the first Wednesday of the month, and you can see it on the board calendar, to attend that meeting for updates. And there was also a very good discussion about that different parts of our community have very different vaccination rates and rates of getting COVID and hospitalizations and so on. And that there was a very good speaker about vaccine hesitancy and how to work with people over vaccine hesitancy, which is different than just people who are anti-vaxxers and just say, no, no, no. There are people who are hesitant and have reason to think that the way they do, but they can be convinced. But a lot of it is about listening and to the person and trying to get in their shoes and understand what their concerns are. So I urge people to go to the HES. And Taylor is telling me that is putting in an advertisement for me. I'm also speaking at HES, but I'm speaking about environmental issues and composting, but that's another story. I did want to tell you about the COVID report, which was very interesting. Some of the other committees in executive board, committee chairs have talked about that there's an interest among the members of the committees to see what do other of our committees on other boards, such as the education committee and another board, what do they do? What are the topics that they're exploring? What are the connections they're making? What are they advocating for? So I was wondering, for any of our members, are we interested? Now it's easier to attend meetings because we can attend them on Zoom while we're having dinner or something. So I'd like to invite people to do a little exploration of some other neighborhoods. You can look up, if you're interested in Crown Heights or Park Slope or Canarsie, Flatbush, and attend one of their meetings on Zoom and bring back ideas to us. What are they concerned about? So ultimately, maybe there are issues that we all have that we could work more collaboratively with other boards, or maybe we'll just get some other ideas. A few years ago, I went to an education committee. I think it was the Crown Heights group, maybe Community District 9, and they were doing some type of outreach fair and giving out books and information to families. And I remember our committee for several years, we had wanted to collaborate with our District 13 in their family fair and speak to parents and have that opportunity, but people aren't having fairs these days. So if there are other ideas, I think I'm very interested. So what do you all think? Do you think that's something people might have time for? If you think it's not a good idea, you can say that too. Jay is saying we could go to the Bronx. do we want to go to the Bronx? What about Brooklyn? Like some neighborhoods in Brooklyn that are nearby. 6 is Carroll Gardens, Cobble Hill, and also includes Red Hook. So it's an area like ours in that it has a affluent area, small homes, and also has NYCHA housing. So that could, so they face some of the same equity issues and so on that we do. Can we see Brooklyn again? Today is showing us Queens, my goodness. Bed-Stuy, Stuyvesant Heights. Does anyone want to just take a plunge and say they'll call up or check on the internet and find out when a meeting is and maybe tune in for a bit?
If I could just share a tip from other committees that are doing this exercise, it's worthwhile to check out some of the community districts that maybe have some things in common with us geographically as well. For example, we are considered one of the waterfront districts, which the folks concerned about the environment on the HES committee are certainly aware of that. As Ms. Feibusch just noted, there are definitely some lower Manhattan districts that we share a lot in common with socioeconomically, just in terms of the spread and diversity. So this is available if you just want to use it to brainstorm.
Do people want to say that they'll take a plunge and choose one, or you're not ready to volunteer yet? That's okay. But we also don't want to all go the same one, you know, so if we want to choose where we want to go, and we don't, you know, have to go, we can go on Zoom, so it would be easy for us. Any interest, or we're not sure?
I think it's a good idea overall. I don't want to commit to finding out when some of these meetings are. I would love for somebody to find out where some of these similar districts are, like Red Hook or Lower Manhattan. And if it works out and it's Zoom, happy to do so. I mean, I was just in a Southern Queens Council meeting last Friday, just on educational planning. So happy to do it, but just don't have time to do the legwork, honestly, to find out when.
Okay, is that something you would have time for? Or I know you have so much to do. I don't want to assign it, so.
Not suggesting that this committee needs to do it the same way every other committee has done it, but the other committees have, if there's interest, it happens. If there is not, it doesn't.
Okay, so we're on our own, but let me know, you know, send me an email or send Taya an email if you're going, if you decide, okay, I'm doing district, you know, Brooklyn 6 or Manhattan 1, just so that we know and we could include it as an agenda item or a conversation next time.
Betty, could you just restate what's the inquiry?
Well, I think Nick just wants to know when the meetings
Oh,
are.
no,
So
I'm sorry, what is the information you're hoping to yield from attending these meetings?
I'm interested in seeing what topics they're covering, if it's presentations or if it's more advocacy, if there's something that they're delving into. I know that in the past, some districts were really having an advocacy stance with their community district superintendent and kind of pushing them about some of the programs and why kids aren't learning to read or why the school doesn't have a library. We've never done that. I think my stance has always been, we want to collaborate with the superintendents. We want to work with them. We want to find out how we can work together. So I've never kind of presented it like we should really push on something, but I'm interested to see if other boards do. And then if there's advocacy that maybe we haven't thought of. I know for years, there's been concerns about the trash at some of the schools. So is that an environmental issue or is that education and schools? It's probably both, you know, whose budget would it come under? And in a few meetings I've gone to, other districts throughout Brooklyn have said they have tremendous trash problems with DSNY's pickup schedule not being aligned to when the custodians put out the trash. and then you have rodent problems. Maybe that should be taken care of by the environmental committee. You know, I'm not saying it belongs here, but then that's an example of an issue that there could be advocacy around. And there are probably a lot of others that I haven't thought of, certainly.
Thank you for clarifying that, because actually what you're saying suggests that you don't actually necessarily need to attend a meeting to do that research. It might be a worthy exercise if everyone just picked one other district. Maybe it's some other district that you're affiliated with because you either work in a different district or live in a different district, and just take a skim of the last 12 months of their meeting minutes for their youth group, which could be, you know, a 40-minute poke around if you have some time.
That's a good idea too. That's because then it's not a one-shot screen,
Yeah.
you know, snippet into just what happens to be the agenda that night, which might not be maybe representative of their focus.
And hopefully the minutes have some meat. I mean, we know that minutes vary. I mean, Madison takes great minutes. I've seen minutes from other organizations where you haven't a clue as to what the essence was. Okay, so I'm putting it out there, and I'll ask for some feedback next time, and anyone can communicate with myself or Taya in between if you have questions about it. Okay, so I wanted to do some updates about the abolitionist place. I think Sam, you sent us an article?
Hi, yeah. So I was just in regards to the abolitionist place, and just having community conversations in regards to what the EDC is trying to formulate with Camila's art piece, and then opening those conversations. I believe there's one next month on the, I believe it's the 9th, and I may be wrong. There was one on this Monday that happened, Camila and a couple of, 2/7, excuse me, where a couple of community members from various different, views and perspectives came together to listen to what her presentation is about, a little history about her work and what brought her to doing this particular commission by EDC. And also, just talking about her views of abolition and her knowledge and scholastic understanding about the work and the history of Brooklyn and what she wants to hear from the community members. So they have a couple of open sessions, as put in the chat. 2/7 is the next opportunity for community members to be, to hear her. She also has an open opportunity to email her directly if you are unable to go to those meetings, and to talk to her candidly about what your perspectives and views are, so that you can listen, and exchange ideas for the actual project in the park. It was a little heated, but I think it was a fruitful conversation for her to experience, because of the tension going on between understanding the history of that property and that land, and then also what community needs are. So it was pretty insightful.
So Sam, you went to one of those meetings?
Yeah, I did it on Monday. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, I think that's really important. Were the people who attended, like the people in that core group who've been pushing, our committee around the naming and the statue and all, or were these people from the community who had just heard about and interested, the artists? Like, did you get a sense of who these folks were?
So to be perfectly honest, it was a big, group of individuals who are representing the 220, Mama Joy, right? Or standing in position to honor Mama Joy. I don't really know what their alignment of groups or whatever it would be. So there was a lot of folks who came from that, that particular perspective and identified as abolitionists. And there were a mix of people who were in support and just wanted more information on exactly how was it going to be applied, of abolition, honoring Mama Joy's legacy, and creating a space that actually honored resistance and honored Black Indigenous folk. And where does this all lie? Some people were really, excited about the project, wanted to know more about it. But yeah, there was a majority of folk which I can totally understand as a person who identifies as an abolitionist. Like, what does it really mean to take back land? What does resistance look like? Where do we land now when it comes down to thinking about educating those who are going to be on this land and thinking about, you know, historical context and futuristic building? So yeah, there was a big group that was talking about that. Camila really kind of was more so listening, reading from the chat. So there wasn't any voices in the call. So everything was read through the chat. And I believe there's also a recording of it that once I get access to it, I can share, unless it's already uploaded on the site. Also there's, and I think the link that I sent out that I was not fully aware of, that this was some EDC formulated abolition working groups, which can be, I don't understand how an EDC can be abolitionist, but nonetheless, I refrain from that comment. But thinking about opening up working groups so that more people can have understanding about the history of abolition, I guess, and thinking about what type of works, I guess, moving forward, if the EDC is consistently involved, that they will be trying to do. So that's something that also was in that link of those working groups, but majority of the call were people just trying to uplift history and recognition for those who were in the fight before this project was even considered.
Thanks, Sam. That's,
No problem.
yeah, that's important. I think I'm going to remind the superintendent that maybe there's a middle school that some of the students could, you know, everyone could find out about it. I mean, it's a public meeting, but maybe there's a group of students or a school that's particularly interested in exploring this and using this as a living experience to see current community conversations about this. So yeah, so I wanted to update about another piece about the abolitionist place. There was a meeting of the chairs, so it was myself from our committee, Barbara from Parks and Recreation, and I think Carlton Jordan from Landmarks and Land Use, as well as the electeds and EDC, to discuss basically the issue of the dog run over the space that we know is sacred space, that the tunnels were underneath this area, and there shouldn't be, the dog run was included there in the design. And, you know, the question has come up, can it be redesigned? Can it just be not have the dog run, or just the whole thing have to be redesigned, or just that area? So the last time there was a meeting, basically EDC said that the city had to shore up the building adjacent, that was the Landmark building on Duffield, and they couldn't speak one way or the other about the dog run over the tunnels, etc. And then this week's meeting was very interesting from my point of view, because Lincoln Ressler is our new city council person, and he has a much more, how do I say this? He was very outspoken. He wasn't, I mean, sometimes elected officials will say, you know, we're concerned and we want to hear everybody's point of view. Lincoln was like, when I went to college, like 15 years ago, they were planning this open space park because the whole downtown was being rezoned. There were going to be high buildings and there's no green space and open space, etc. And he said, I can't believe that we're still having this conversation. And there's a sense that there are dog people in the neighborhood who need to walk their dog and need to have their dogs run around and utilize a dog park. But as public land, we have to respect and honor what went on in that area previously in terms of abolitionists. So to be continued, but it was astonishing that to redesign the whole park now would mean they're saying at least $12 million just to redesign it. So it sounds like most likely they'll just
But
take
people make too much money. It sounds like somebody makes too much money. Sorry to cut you off. 12 million to redesign?
No,
Well,
they would
12
have a contract with some contractors, I guess, to do the work. And then if they had to stop the design process to redesign, they said they'd get a lawsuit from the labor group, the company that got the contract and is anyway, it was quite interesting to hear. It isn't that somebody's getting a check for $12 million for the redesign per se, but all of the aspects that would be involved. Do you want to add to that, Taya?
I don't actually think we should at this point.
Okay. Okay, but I just wanted to let the committee know.
No, that was a great summary.
Yeah, it's in
I would-
discussion.
I
And
think that Assemblymember Simon's letter is a good summary of how the local electeds feel about this issue, including Councilmember Ressler.
Mhm.
If any of the newer members of the committee are interested in the history of all of this, please feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to chat about it on the phone with you.
yeah, and do you, our young people, do you know the area we're talking about? It's like Willoughby and Duffield. It's right there in that downtown area. Did you ever walk by there? Walk down Willoughby from school when you have a moment. Walk down Willoughby toward Flatbush Avenue, and you will see an area that is blocked
Like
off.
Target, City Point, Target, Alamo Draft House. We might know some
Our young
landmarks.
people go to school in downtown Brooklyn, and I want them to take a walk down Willoughby. It's good to take a walk, maybe not when it's 0 degrees, but soon. Soon. So that's it about Abolitionist Place. Are there any questions about that? And we know that we can't call it a park because it's not a Parks and Recreation City Park. So we can't call it Abolitionist Park, which is what we were calling it. So it's Abolitionist Place. Okay, and 2 other things on my report. I think I had said earlier in this year, I mean, not this calendar year, but in the fall, that I'd really like to focus on 0 to 5-year-olds and get some speakers about the concerns. Are the children that need to be in daycare or Head Start or 3K, do we have enough spots for them in our area to provide high quality early education and daycare? Maybe this would be an area for the statement of district needs. And then I spoke briefly with Bill Flournoy, who's the chair of economic development. I asked him to share if people are saying that some of the employment issues are because parents can't get childcare, so they can't be in the workforce for that reason. So he's going to explore that and get some information on that. So I hope this is something we can pursue. And on February 2nd, the Citizens Committee for Children is going to have what they call a state rally. Now, in the past, the rallies and the lobbying, people would go up to Albany, but now it's, of course, on Zoom. So from 11 to 12 on February 2nd, and we'll get it out to you in the notes and so on. There's a state rally for children's behavioral health, because we know in the COVID times, I mean, everyone's having some type of emotional reaction, and it's hard for everyone, but it's also documented that it's affecting the children very much in terms of their mental health and their emotional status. So what kind of additional resources could be brought forth? So I'm going to try to attend that on Zoom. And if people can attend that as well, we could talk about it next time. So that is my chair's report. So the next item is other committee business. So Youth Council folks, you're on the committee. If you have anything to bring up, to ask, to wonder about, this is your time. Sakura, hi.
just because I'm still learning and I don't quite know what I'm doing yet, what are things that the youth council has brought up in the past? Like, can you give me a couple examples of issues that have been brought up before?
No, you're the first youth council, so
Oh,
you're
yeah,
gonna
okay.
bring it up yourself. So, sorry, can't answer. You're the, what do you call that? The inaugural group or there's a term for that, the first group. So, yeah, it's up to you. But do you have questions about what we talked about so far? Are there any things you think we should be talking about in the future on this committee? Anything that affects you as young people in your life, as students and so on? Okay, so
Stuff to ponder. Those are some deep questions for night one, not knowing anybody. So no pressure. Maybe now.
right, and also think about, I mean, you're members of this committee, but as part of your experience, you'll be going to another committee and also a full board meeting. So think about what kind of issues you're interested in hearing more about. You know, we have parks, we have health, environment, social service, we have land use, employment and economic development. What did I leave out? Landmarks, parks, land use, transportation. Do some of you bike? Do you bike to school? Do you almost get run over by bikes? Do you get deliveries by bikes? You're all affected by bikes and transportation. So that might be a committee you want to see what's going on and what the issues are. I mean, the issues don't have to, that you choose to explore might not be issues that are part of this committee, even though you're members of this committee.
Betty, I also want to add, just for our fellow members to kind of ponder on, is to think about what we as a board can expand upon to be a lot more relevant in our community. To think about where, like Betty is mentioning, like when you're walking around and you're observing, what is the things that are the most passionate for you, but also thinking about as you experience this, you know, journey in the board of how we can actually be more relevant and engaged to community members that are, you know, not necessarily present. And thinking about, because there is any application for new board members, you know, to, you know, you can ask other folks, like, look, I'm a youth council member, but you may have more opportunity or flexibility to kind of like join and attend just as a public member, to get more engaged, to kind of amplify voices for these things and be more advocates in other ways. So thinking about that as well from the school perspective and your mindset, what you're experiencing there. And then also like, what can we be doing to be more intentional about the community that we're serving? So thinking about that as well.
Yeah, I think that that's a very good point. Like, what else can we delve into? I can reflect on my years on this committee. Some years, so many people wanted to talk to us and we were just listening to presentations and reacting. And now we don't have as many people saying, well, we have to speak to your committee. So in a way, we have to, you know, fill up an agenda. That's the bureaucratic side, but there's an opportunity there to say, okay, people aren't beating down our door to speak to us. So now we can have time to explore, to find out more, to invite people and so on. So we have to think about it both ways. So I saw earlier on, Taya is telling us that a city agency could be asking us for a recommendation or a vote, or we know that sometimes someone in the community has an issue or an organization needs a letter of support about some issue. Let me just see who for a little while, there was another board member, Miss Carolyn Hubbard Cumming-Wary. I don't see her on anymore. A few names I don't recognize. Is there anyone else on this call that would like to add their words? This is your opportunity.
Hi, can you hear me? My name is Sherry.
Hi, Sherry.
I've been wanting to sit in on this for a couple of years. I just hadn't had the opportunity because I was always working. I'm just listening to see where I can fit in and help. I just don't want to be on a board and not do anything. So I'm trying to figure out where my talents could be used. Okay. So
Great. So what are your thoughts so far?
I'm interested, especially with the youth, because I come from a nonprofit background and I did a lot of things with youth. And even when I was their age, I used to tutor. So it's always about the youth with me. And just figuring out what we can do in my neighborhood with youth now that it's a pandemic, and a lot of extracurriculum activities have been stopped. I know that doing things, extracurricular activities outside of school is kind of what helps form a youth into an adult. And I'm just trying to figure out, even the youth I talk to, like, what do you do after you go to school now? And some people just don't know, they're directionless, and just trying to figure out like what we can do on our end, or point them to like Irondale. I'm living right around the corner from them. I didn't even know they did all of that. So I'm going to talk to some of the teenagers I have a relationship with, to let them know. That's
great. Yeah, I mean, every voice, every person connecting to another person helps the work a lot. What grade or age are you talking about? Are you talking about high school kids who are kind of disengaged, or younger kids?
From 6 to 12, 6th grade to 12th grade. Just trying to figure out what they can be doing with their free time after school, letting their parents know what's available. Some parents may not even know.
Right. That's true. The schools, I don't know. I mean, the high schools, the students are supposed to be more self-directed, I think, and try to find out like what clubs, what other things are available. But in the middle schools, I know that many middle schools do have some type of after-school program. Now, whether they're high quality or of interest, I mean, if it's homework help and playing in the gym, I mean, some kids love that, and others that doesn't grab them at all. So it's a way of, how do we figure out how to engage people where they're at?
And just for me, that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to figure out where I can help, where my skills and my education has been, or what I've learned during my years of working with young people. And one of the things I've learned a lot is that, unfortunately, in some cases, parents could be the holdback because they don't understand the benefits. This is just an example. I used to help with a writing camp. And, one parent came to me and said, well, I don't understand how my kid going to a writing camp for 2 years is going to help him get a good job or go to college. She just didn't see it. But, once I explained to her, this is something your child likes. Obviously, he has some type of talent because he was picked, because you don't have to pay for anything. And then, when I just started running off like how writing is so important in the workplace, she got it. And it's just things like that. Sometimes you really do have to go through parents, because the parents don't get it. Everybody wants their child to have a good job. We get it, all parents. But, having your child interested in something that you don't understand, it could be a holdback. You know, this is just an example. I went to school with somebody who loved to play drums. And, you know, he would go down the hallway playing drums all the time and getting into trouble. We're always walking around with his drumsticks. And now he's an international drummer, like he travels the world. And, you know, his parents just didn't see it. You know, they wanted him to be in a science. He left science, but that just wasn't his passion. He was just good at it.
Well, that's a wonderful story that when kids go with their passion, he loved drums. So thank you for sharing, and please come back to our committee or other committees to see where you want to participate. We have spaces for public members. If you wanted to be a public member, you would come to 3 consecutive meetings and show an interest and contact the board office, and it goes from there. And then people are public members where they can vote at the committee level, but not at the total board level. And if you're interested in being on the full board, the applications are open through the borough president's website. And they're actually, for a while they weren't up, but I did mine. I had to we have to reapply every 2 years. I did mine. So we'll see if the new borough president wants me to continue in this role. But
Okay,
we'll see.
thank you. Thanks for that.
Thank you,
And I will
Sherry.
definitely be back. Okay.
That's great. So have a good month, and we look forward to seeing you in a little Zoom box. Okay.
Thanks for sharing, Sherry. Welcome.
Thank you.
So is there any other business or information or questions to come before us at this point?
I was wondering if on Sherry's point, if the board, if this is in the scope of the board. I know when we were discussing the youth council and outreach, how some schools have bulletins or PDFs of all these opportunities, if something similar could be done for just 5 through or whatever, all ages of youth, for programs and stuff.
So you're saying there should be more listings of things that are available to young people, and it should be posted in schools? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the board,
I'm not hearing you well. Maybe you're
if I don't know if this would be too much work.
Madison, I'm sorry, but your video is a little
Can you hear me
choppy. You could try just cutting your video feed so we can maybe hear you. Sometimes that helps. Oh, I see.
Okay, is this better?
Yep, much better.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sort of like a master kind of, I don't know, weekly or monthly update with a bunch of programs and different categories. And then that could be dispersed either through us or also through the schools to get in contact with parents and stuff like that. I don't know if that would be outside the scope of the community board, but kind of like Irondale, there's so many programs that are not well known.
That's definitely not outside the scope of the community board if it's specific to our geographic district. One of our perpetual frustrations with all of the city agencies is that they frequently will send us information about events happening the day before, or sometimes actually, unfortunately, the DOE is kind of the worst about this. We got a notice today, a first notice today, this morning, about an event happening tonight. There's not a lot that the 2 of us in the office can do with that. But Madison, that is an interesting idea.
It could also be more focused on long-term program.
Yeah.
Right.
So not event driven, but more program focused.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good idea. Could we maybe chat offline to get more specific about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds like something maybe even the youth, if folks are interested in contributing to that endeavor. I feel like we talk about that at work all the time, right? There's so many resources out there, and in this case we're talking about positive pro-social activities, right, for young people, but how do you know they exist, and who maintains that? Where do I go, kind of thing?
Yeah, actually,
one last operational point I would just say to I guess the longer term versus the events and hearing about it later. Recently we had done via work for services that are out there, right? If we're trying to connect clients to things, and too often when you do call, something isn't enrolling, something is done, something is over, right? Or the show was last week, right? It ended. And so we have a Microsoft form, you know, where that sort of specific type of question now. So if they're at least willing to fill it out, you know, things like enrollment periods, when is it open, when is it closed, and stuff like that. Trying to build that in so that it is more alive and accurate, I guess. So I don't know if there's an application to this, but felt like there could be.
Is Nick, in the future when everything's better and we're fully staffed, I would do a Google form and send that around to our spreadsheet of all of the cultural orgs in the district and say, hey, you want us to help you promote your regular programs, not your specific events, but your regular programming. Please fill out this form and we'd be happy to help spread the word. That's a great idea. I feel like most people are pretty comfortable with Google Forms at this point.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
That's a great
we've
idea.
filled out a lot.
I know.
And QR codes.
No.
Okay, no, that's a great idea, and
I
I
have
hope
a theory
we
that QR codes would have died except for outdoor dining menus. Anyway,
First
good
time I
idea.
saw that, I was like, I can't. I don't know what this is. Okay, so those were all very good ideas. I hope we can move forward on them. Any other business?
Only-
So, oh, go ahead. Somebody, whoever else was talking, please go ahead.
Hey.
It's very administrative. Could I keep the 4 youth council and Madison also, if you'd like to stay, it's optional, for like 5 minutes after the meeting concludes, for just an administrative scheduling of a one-on-one check-in, because you only have 5 meetings left. That's it. Thanks, Madison.
Okay. Okay, so have a great month, and
Sorry,
Oh.
Nick had something though.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know if it's like spot on the next agenda or something, but we are having a repeated theme of question of sort of maybe direction and, you know, how we might want to move forward, but where is the space to plan that truly, right? That sounds like a conversation and some brainstorming and some sort of setting of directionalities for folks who want to participate. So I guess I don't know where that space or when that space could be, but I'm super interested in that being created and participating.
that could be on the agenda. I mean, that's fine. Yeah. And Taya wants to know who could facilitate that conversation. Yeah.
Could that be an offline conversation, you and I, Taya? I'm not ready to answer that question.
Yeah. I think that's also something we could move forward on. So I hope people have a little time to find out what other board committees who have education in their title. They're not all youth education and cultural affairs. Some are education and social service. Some are education and something else, mental health. So you'll sort through it in a neighborhood you're interested in, or Taya can help you figure out which one. I'm going to look at CB6, since I live like 2 blocks away. But yeah, if we could all choose different ones, or whoever can, and then we can report out and have a conversation next time. Thank you. Have a great month. Is there a motion to adjourn? Nick.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Madison. Oh, we had Matt. I don't know.
That's me, Sam.
Sam.